Welcome to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Cola, where we talk about life, love, and language. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. Let's get into today's topic. Now, here's where it gets interesting with this move. We're still talking about faith as big as mountains. Now that I had a date, I started looking at all the things around me. So I was currently going to a church that I absolutely adored, but I was feeling disconnected from them, and I didn't understand why. There had been just different things happening at church, different changes. They were changing from what I knew them to be when I started to more Catholicism. And I didn't grow up Catholic, so all those new changes were an adjustment for me. And I really started feeling disconnected from the church. But I loved going, and I loved the people, and I loved the pastors. And so one thing that I knew was important is that obviously God is my covering. He's my head. He's my everything. But sometimes when you belong to a church and you belong to a ministry in a community, you also want to tell those people, like, hey, but I think God is moving me here. Like, I think I'm out, right? So that they could pray for you, they could cover you, all this other stuff. And I knew at the time that my pastors had once upon a time lived in Los Angeles, or lived in California at least. And so I was excited to talk to them about this because this is all new to me. This is all revelation. Like, I really was excited. I didn't think about all this stuff, but even just by God challenging me to clean my room and to get it into a state that it was ready to move, I was like, yeah, something's happening. And so I had a conversation with my pastor, and of course his concern was like, where am I going to live? What am I going to do? But outside of that, he's like, it's artsy, you'd fit right in, that kind of stuff. And so it was a decent conversation. And at the time, I wasn't necessarily going on Sundays, only because I was a part of a summer market in Toronto. And so I was driving to sell my deodorants like every weekend in Toronto on Saturdays so I could go to church Sunday. But then because it wasn't getting as much people, then we were invited to the Sunday one. And so for that actual summer, I wasn't really in church physically, but I was still a part of the church. And I would catch the messages on a different day. And it's still just out of respect. I'm like, this is the community that I'm a part of. I should have a conversation with them. And so I did. And so I said, okay, cool. That I get the concern. I understand it. Who wouldn't be concerned about somebody you love saying, hey, I'm up and leaving and God told me to go here, but he didn't tell me the what, when, why, or where. But I honestly just stayed in scripture for that one. I'm like, faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the things not seen. Because if I can see it, it's not faith. And with that in mind, I'm like, I just got myself to understand that if I have to see every space that he's bringing me to, if I have to see all of it, then it's not faith. Then I'm not truly believing and trusting in him. Yes, absolutely use wisdom when it comes to certain things. But when I was looking on YouTube and watching other people's testimonies, so many people have left their state and left the place that they were at to move because they felt the move of God. Now, did some people do it in a way that wasn't wise? Sure. It's a learning lesson. We're all walking with God. We're all learning God. But for those who truly trusted and believed, in the end, it really worked out for them. It might have been a little rough in the beginning, but it really worked out for them. And I absolutely love that amount of faith to believe that God would bring you to another state. I'm like, here's the difference. They were moving states. I was moving countries. Meaning, I needed to have something that gave me like legality in their country. Now, as a Canadian citizen, I can go there. I can go to the States for 6 months without anybody questioning anything. I just have to come back, right? Because there's been people who would just go there and just stay and just be like, I live here now. And like, that's just not how it works legally. And God is a God about order. He doesn't ignore um certain things just for our own benefit. Something that, listen, when I say that, don't come for me. There's certain things that God will supersede. He knows best. But in things specific to like order, God is a God of order. And I'm gonna say it like that. So here I am, August, September hits now, and I'm still trying to piece together what am I doing. The job that I was at, they required 2 week notice for anybody to leave, and I'm like, man, okay. So although I wasn't sure if I was leaving on the 28th, it's a date that I believed God was sending me, but I'm like, I'm not 100% sure that that's the date. Like he hadn't confirmed it, but I had to give my job 2 weeks notice, and I didn't want to not give it out of respect for them, out of respect for the company. That was the rules. I'm like, okay, let me give them this 2 week notice. And I didn't make any type of like arrangements like, guys, this is what I'm trying to do, and if it doesn't work, I'll be back. I was just like, no, I'm going to go with full force. I'm just going to believe that this is what God has for me. Like, he hasn't stopped me yet. He hasn't told me don't do it. Even when I went to go talk to my manager at the time, she's like, man, I just had a sense you were leaving soon. And I was telling her that I was going to Los Angeles, and she started telling me of her friend that went to Los Angeles who didn't have a whole lot of success here in Canada, but when she moved to the States, like things and doors just started opening, and now she's part of a church and all these other things. And I said, wow, that gives me a lot of hope to know that what I'm doing is not like crazy. So I'm like, man, even my manager's telling me stories about Los Angeles. I'm like, God, this seems like a go. Because I'm like, of all places, her friend moved to Los Angeles too. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to I put in my 2 week notice. Now I'm just like counting down the days to my departure. And I asked God, I'm like, should I do a goodbye party? Because I'm like, I know there's a lot of people here who would be upset if I left without saying goodbye. There's a lot of different people who are invested in my life. And if I just kind of like up and left and they never got a chance to see me, like it would hurt their feelings. And that same day, I got a call from a friend of mine, and she was just talking about like she'd been in and out of the States, and how she travels to get through, basically, without being vaccinated and all that stuff. And she was talking about one of her friends that left Canada, and the friend was supposed to have a goodbye party that day that she just wasn't able to attend. And anyways, that friend ended up going to Los Angeles, and within like 6 months of being there, ended up getting a really big movie role and just got a lot of success. And I was like, wow, like I'm being surrounded by stories of people who've taken up themselves, moved to Los Angeles, and have found success, number one. But number two, I'm like, God, did she just say goodbye party on the day that I asked you if I should have a goodbye party? And so I said, okay, God, I'm going to plan this goodbye party. And I'm like, it's last minute. I don't know who could come, but I think it was like 2 weeks away. I'm like, but I'm going to just plan it, and whoever shows up, shows up. And so I planned this party, and not a whole lot of people can come, which is fine. But it was a great success. We had a lot of laughs. I made pizza, and it was really good. And people showed up. They said bye. They did all the other stuff, and it was really cool. Like it gave me a lot of peace in my decision to take up and leave. And I think the party was a couple days before. I think it was like on the Saturday before I left. Then I went to church on the Sunday. I did tell my pastor that like the week before I leave, or like the week that I'm leaving, I will make it to church so that I can say bye to everybody. And that's what I did. I went to church. They prayed over me, and I was saying bye. And so I had made all these arrangements. I had said bye to work. I had said bye to people, and people had started like pouring, just giving towards me for my travel, especially because A lot of people, I told them, I'm like, I have no clue where I'm going. I'm just on this journey with God. And so now I had at least a little bit of money in my pocket, especially because I wasn't, I had quit my job and I had done everything I was supposed to do. The only thing left was to buy my ticket. I had not bought my ticket yet. Number one, because I didn't have the finances prior to purchase my ticket. But number two, I was still praying. I said, God, which way do you want me to go? Because like I said in the last episode, at the moment that I was traveling, this is September 2022, Canada had restrictions that Americans couldn't come, and US had restrictions that Canadians couldn't come, unvaccinated. And everyone kept asking me, how are you gonna get through the border? Right? Because someone had thrown me like a goodbye lunch and we're sitting there talking to them. I'm like, man, it's all God. Like, I have to believe that if God wants me to go, he'll let me get through. And here's the thing about faith, okay? It's not just blind faith. It's not just God's going to get me through and there's nothing else to it. I also said, if for whatever reason God's not sending me, then he will have grace on me. And I won't lose anything. I won't lose out. He'll show me another way. Now, at the time, I had been trying to find somebody to drive because I heard that it was easier to get through the borders unvaccinated by driving. But there was no cars available. Nobody could take me. Nobody was free. And even when I was messaging in different Facebook groups, nobody was available to take me on the date that I was leaving. And so now I'm like, okay, I can't travel by bus or by night. I can't travel by bus because they're going to ask for proof of vaccination. I can't travel by car because nobody's car is available and the Buffalo Borders is 2 hours away from my house. I'm like, the only thing I can do is travel by flight. And so the night before, I said, God, you still haven't even confirmed to me if this is the right date that I'm leaving. But I said, I'm like, if I'm going to have faith, I'm going to have faith all the way. I'm just going to believe that if you don't want me to go, you'll stop me or you'll make another way. And I just kept going with that belief that either he'll get me through or he'll make another way. So now the night before is when I bought my ticket. I bought my ticket the Tuesday night before I left. And I think it was American Airlines that I bought it on. But I just bought the one-way ticket, and I kept like trying to follow or recreate my dream. Now I know dreams aren't exact all the time, but I was still trying to recreate it. Where I'm like, I took a bus to Los Angeles. I'm like, why would I take a bus to Los Angeles? And so somehow the tickets to go directly to Los Angeles were too much. But there was a ticket to a smaller airport, and from that smaller airport, I could take a bus to Los Angeles. And I was like, wow, okay, God, is this the way you're bringing me? Is this what it is? And so I ended up booking that way. I booked to the smaller airport and waiting to take a bus to, like, planning that I'm okay. When I get there, I will find a bus that will take me to Los Angeles. So I booked the ticket the night before. Now, I hadn't told my parents too much until I knew what God was saying, until like the beginning of September, maybe, when I knew, or when I felt like God was like releasing me to go. I said, okay, let me have this conversation with them. Hey, I'm leaving. I don't know where I'm going yet. I don't know what I'm doing, but I really feel like God is calling me to go to Los Angeles, and so that's what I'm doing. And my parents just didn't understand, didn't get it. With a lot of people, they were concerned on where I was going to stay. I had people downright telling me that that's not how God works. Like, God will always bring you a place and always map it out for you before you can leave. Like, he doesn't just pick you up and tell you to go. And I knew that was incorrect because I'm like, I know in the Bible, he took, like, Abraham, which I spoke about in the very first beginning of this faith journey. He told Abraham, get thee from your father's house to a country in which I will show you. He didn't have no plans. He waited for Abraham to take the first step by faith. And then he's like, okay, cool. Now I'll show you where it is. And so I was like, biblically, I understand people's worry because we're human. But I'm like, I'm in the middle of a spiritual experience. And this spiritual experience is telling me that I just need to trust God. Okay, boom. So the morning of, my parents are driving me to the airport because it was like a early morning flight. And my parents were actually like really sad and crying. And I was like, well, this is new. They're not that affectionate in a sense. And so I wasn't used to seeing this type of emotion. They had given me a card with some funds in it, and I like unexpected. And they're just like, we don't know where you're going. We don't know why you're doing this. And all I would keep telling them, I'm like, just pray. Just pray and ask God. Just pray and let God guide you. Just pray and let that be the focus that you have when it's concerning this trip. And they're like, we're praying, but we don't get it, and like all this stuff. But it really showed me. I'm like, wow, look at the emotion. Like, look at how they're really upset. Like, dang, I did not even. I know they're my parents, but I didn't even think that. Oh, that's probably self-start. The thing that they wouldn't care so much. I knew they cared, but if you grow up with parents who don't really show affection, it kind of just catches you off guard when they do. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, we know they love us. Yes, we know they care. But like, that's all in theory. You know what I'm saying? Like, the practicality of it is they don't really show up and say, I love you. They don't really even give hugs unless we hug them first. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things. Or like, if we've been gone for too long and we come back, then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I missed you. But like, that's what it takes. You know what I'm saying? So we're driving to the airport, and when we get there, they're like, should I stay? I'm like, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just go. And so I get up to the counter, and I'm like excited, and the lady's talking about my hair, my lipstick, all of it. And then she asked me for my proof of vaccination, and I said, I don't have. Oh, just pull it up on your phone. And then I said to her, I'm like, I'm not vaccinated. And she kind of just looked at me. She's like, oh, well, you can't come here. You can't come to the country. And so she asked me for my passport. I gave it to her, and I was nervous. I'm like, what is she doing with my passport? I'm like, is she banning me? Is she, like, those seconds that I was waiting, I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And it was just a realization. I'm like, oh, so God's not letting me go through. Because I know if he wanted to, he would. And I'm like, so it was a no. Okay. And I'm processing it. And I'm just trying to hold my composure, hold my peace. And I kept asking her, I'm like, okay, so like, what are you doing with my passport? And she was like, oh, I'm using it so that you don't lose your money. She's like, I'm just putting a note here that you can't get on so that you don't lose anything. It'll be like a travel credit. And I said, okay. And it gave me a little piece. And then I called my parents back, and they had already driven about 20 minutes away at this point. And they had to come back and get me. And when they came back, I told them what happened. We drove home, and I was just processing everything. I was just going over everything in my head. Like, okay, it's a no. But like, where do I go from here? What do I do? Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Cola. I am so excited that you are here. If anything I said today resonated, then get in touch with me. I have an amazing mentorship program. It is for those who feel misunderstood, overwhelmed, going through grief. It is truly an amazing time. If you want more info, hit my website, lipsandlanguage.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can hit it up on the website or DM me. I have a free gift for you, and I would love to be in contact with you. Whatever you decide, just know that healing, it looks good on you. And I'm so excited that we get to do this journey together. Have a blessed day. And if nobody told you, I will. I love you. Enjoy your day, and we'll talk soon. Peace.